In the 1980s, Iran and Iraq fought one of the longest wars of the 20th century. More than 1 million people lost their lives, and tens of thousands of Iranian troops died because of Saddam Hussein's attacks with chemical weapons. After decades of bitterness and distrust, it was Iran that rushed to help Iraq defeat a threat to both countries, the Islamic State. ISIS is now pretty much gone from Iraq, but Iran isn't. And with national elections now coming up, its influence is only growing.
It's about 2 o'clock in the morning and we're out with the Basra police force. These guys have just received some intelligence, so they have a couple of targets that they're hoping to take down.
In the last year, drug arrests have skyrocketed in Iraq's border towns.
Wow, that's a lot of people packed in there.
And there's one country the dealers were pointing to as their source.
Where did the drugs come from originally?
Iran.
What were you dealing?
Crystal.
Were you making a lot of money?
No, mal haram. يجن ويرحم.
This man.
This is you?
Yeah, with all money.
You were loaded. Look at that. When did it become so prevalent?
وكان قلة ناس قلة يعني يدخنونه لأن كان ما منشور بس ظلت الحدود الإيرانية تطبوا بكميات هواي فانتشر عندنا هنا بالبصرة.
Why now do you think they're sending a lot of them?
بس كانت إيران تعبر شيء قليل بس هسه ظلت تطبوا بكميات هواي.
The 900-mile border between Iraq and Iran has become increasingly porous, as it's mostly fallen under the control of Iran-backed Shia militias. But the influence of these militias goes beyond the drug trade. Since fighting ISIS, they've increased their military strength across the country and are even getting involved in national politics. To find out more about this power shift, we spoke to Muafaq al-Rubai, a distinguished politician who ardently supported the US invasion, but has since witnessed Iran's growing dominance in his country.
So do you think the US has allowed this vacuum which Iran has stepped into?
They pulled out irresponsibly, recklessly. When ISIS stormed the 3 provinces in June 2014, we asked for help from the United States of America. We told them that we can see and monitor terrorists coming from Syria crossing the borders to Iraq. Please help us with some airstrike. President Obama said no. It took the United States of America 3 months to start bombing the terrorists in Iraq. 3 months, while it took Iran 24 hours. Truckloads of arms and people to help us defending Baghdad.
You had no option but to turn to Iran.
Absolutely.
Iraq's pivot towards America's longtime adversary, Iran, comes after the US has lost more than 4,500 lives fighting in Iraq and spent more than $2 trillion since the fall of Saddam Hussein.
So this is the noose that was used to hang Saddam Hussein?
Yeah, this is the news.
So you watched him being hanged?
Oh, yes. I pulled the trigger, actually.
You pulled the trigger?
Yeah, I pulled the trigger.
Did you ever imagine back then that this would be the country that he'd left behind?
He promised to leave behind him ruins, and that's what he did.
Who's to blame for that?
The countries surrounding Iraq worked really hard for this democratic experiment to fail.
Ever since Saddam's fall, Iran has tried to control Iraq, but it's only now that it's actually beginning to achieve that goal. By securing Iraqi territory, Iran will have a land corridor connecting Tehran with allied forces across Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon. But Iran isn't just using military might to achieve that aim. It's also leveraging cultural and economic ties.
We're inside what's known as Najaf's Iranian market, and everyone from the trash collectors to the vendor sellers seems to be Iranian. Where are most of your clients coming from?
إيراني أغلبية.
Have you noticed it's got busier recently?
هسه أكثر مو مثل قبل. قبل كانوا كلش قليل، الآن أكثر.
So the Iraqis have the Iranians to thank for a lot of money coming in.
طبعاً أكيد. هم منتعش الاقتصاد حالياً بالنجف وباقي المناطق العراقية.
Imports of goods from Iran have more than doubled in the last 10 years, and the spending power of Iranian visitors is strengthening Iran's foothold.
Right now we're walking towards one of the holiest Shiite sites in the world, which is what millions of Iranians travel here for every single year. Where have you all come from?
بیشتر از ایران اومدیم، از استان خراسان رضوی.
Everyone from Iran?
بله، هممون.
Iran? Iran? Why do you think the number of Iranians coming here has exploded over the last few years?
ما قبلا به این راحتی نمیتونستیم بیایم اینجا زیارت بکنیم، ولی الان از زمانی که صدام رفته خدا لعنتش بکنه ما به راحتی میتونیم بیایم بریم. میگم انگار کشور خودمونه، همه یکی هستیم، یکسانیم.
Iran's 70 million Shia Muslims share a religious bond with more than 20 million Shia in Iraq, who make up more than half the population here. When ISIS overwhelmed the Iraqi army and swept through the mainly Sunni northwest of the country in 2014, Iraq's top Shia cleric issued a fatwa making it a religious duty to defend the homeland.
ومن هنا فإن على المواطنين الذين يتمكنون من حمل السلاح عليهم التطوع للانخراط في القوات الأمنية.
This call to arms was immediately answered by tens of thousands of new recruits. Equipped and advised by Iran, those volunteers joined with existing militias. By decree from the Iraqi government, they then became the Popular Mobilization Forces, or PMF.
We're with the Badr Brigade, which is the largest of the Popular Mobilization Forces. There's about 40,000 members in total. They took this whole neighborhood back from ISIS just a couple of months ago, and civilians haven't yet returned here. Formed in the 1980s to serve Iranian interests in Iraq, the Badr Brigade killed many American soldiers during the Iraqi insurgency. But in the fight against ISIS, the militia became an unlikely US ally. So ISIS were occupying all these houses just a couple of months ago?
الشاهد هذه محجوز إلى الدولة الإسلامية.
Hassan Ahmed al-Samah is in command of this unit as they round up remaining ISIS fighters.
Is that gunfire?
أي.
What's going on?
احتمال يعني شاهدوا فد حركة غريبة فاضطر يطلق النار عليها لتوقيف هالحركة.
So you're still looking for ISIS members around here?
بالضبط، هذه هي عمليات تطهير جارية بهذه المناطق.
Do you think some of them are still here?
بلا شك موجودة، لأن احنا أمس من دخلنا لهذه القرية فراشهم وأكلهم داخل حفرة مشابهة لحفرة صدام حسين. هاي بطانيته، هذا المكان اللي هو يختص بيلبد هنا.
So this is where you caught an ISIS guy yesterday?
Yeah.
Wow.
هذه هي أحد العبوات الناسفة اللي تفجيرها يوم أمس. هذه الإطلاق مالتها، وهذه هي آلة التحكم مالتها.
This is one of the IDs they've been collecting, and now they're going to show us how they explode it. Be safe. Fuck, run, 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 run. Why is it the PMU's responsibility, rather than the Iraqi army's, to clear out these houses of IEDs and to find the last ISIS fighters here?
هو خاص بعض القوى كانت هنا هم خونة خانوهم انسحبوا من مناطقهم اجت داعش احتلتهم فانعدمت الثقة بالجيش هنا يأمنون بالحشد الشعبي أكثر من يعني الجيش والشرطة وما شابه ذلك.
With victory over ISIS, the Popular Mobilization Forces have been embraced by many Iraqis as national heroes. Some militias have recently set up political arms to field candidates in the upcoming parliamentary election. And Iran is using its influence on local media to boost their cause. This particular station has just launched a news channel in the to be very much on the same political page.
قال الرئيس السوري بشار الأسد أن السوريين ماضون في نضالهم ضد الإرهاب بالتعاون مع الدول الصديقة وفي مقدمتها إيران وروسيا ما يمهد طريقا نحو إنجاز حل سلمي.
The Asia Network is one of several news outlets in Iraq that's allegedly funded by sources with ties to Iran. It reaches over 1 million people across multiple platforms.
إذاعة راديو انهار.
صباح النور. هيلا
صباح الخير.
قول ابو شباب. الولاد الحلو خذ لي زوم
ابو شباب.
انت هيجي حلو؟
حلو.
مستمعين. انت جايب ايه كامل المواصفات فول اوبشن.
Local celebrities Tamara Jamal and Nahi Mahdi host a comic radio show that also serves to promote their views on current politics.
What's it like living here in Baghdad and how are you guys feeling about the elections?
من قدم خدمة لهذا البلد، من دافع عن هذا البلد، من ضحى من أجل هذا البلد يستحق أن يكون على رأس الهرم في هذا البلد.
And who are the fighters who saved Iraq from ISIS?
أبناء الحشد الشعبي.
So are you advocating for those guys to be the ones in power, in parliament?
نعم.
You too?
أكيد مجرد إنه تطهير هاي الأرض من هاي الناس اللي قذرة فطبعا أؤمن بيهم.
Everyone at this TV station, this radio station is in agreement about that?
أكيد.
One group with political aspirations is Shia militia Harakat Hezbollah al-Nujaba. Citing the group's close ties with Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, Congress has proposed designating al-Nujaba a terrorist organization. We met Hashim al-Mozawi, the militia's official spokesman at the group's headquarters in Baghdad.
And who are these guys up here?
السيد الصادر قتله صدام والسيد الخامنئي.
And what do they represent to you, these two?
كما يعني البابا للمسيح.
Now that ISIS is all but over, what's the mission of al-Nujaba now in Iraq?
قتل ولكننا نحث الناس على الدخول في الانتخابات ووضحنا استراتيجيتنا المستقبلية على البناء الفكري والثقافي الصحيح.
Can you understand the fear that is coming from the West when it comes to, they look at your organization and they see the close relationship that you have with Iran and with the Revolutionary Guards, and potentially Iran can use you guys to spread their influence across Iraq?
ليس بمقدور أمريكا أن توقف عجلة حركة النجباء أو أن تثني عزيمتها. نحن شعب لا يخاف من أمريكا، وقاتل أمريكا ولن يسمح لأمريكا أن تتدخل بشؤونه الخاصة.
The possible election of former militia leaders sympathetic to Iranian interests will allow Tehran to consolidate its powers within the Iraqi government. To hear what threat that might pose to the stability of Iraq and the wider region, we met with Iraqi Vice President Ayad Alawi. Is Iran having much impact on these elections?
Well, Iran plays a very significant role. They have important players sitting in Iraq trying to influence the elections.
How prominent is Iran here?
Really, they want to control Iraq, as they are doing now. They control Iraq. They are interfering in macro and micro levels.
Do you think that Iraq is at risk of becoming a platform for a proxy battle between the US and Iran?
It is already. It is becoming a platform and a theater for conflict. One day between Iran and Turkey, one day between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the international community will be sucked in gradually. If you take Syria as a pilot project, Russia is sucked into the Syrian issue, America is sucked in, and Europe is sucked in. This region is in a boiling position now.
With Iran now poised to tighten its grip over Iraq, its influence extends across the region. From Iranian troops fighting in Syria to its proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon and its allies Hamas in Gaza and the opposition movement in Bahrain and the Houthis in Yemen.
Iran has not been treating that part of the world or the world itself appropriately. A lot of bad things are happening in Iran.
The White House has now signaled that over 5,000 troops could be staying in Iraq indefinitely.
إنما هذه الحرب كانت حرب باردة ما بين إيران وأمريكا وتحولت إلى حرب ساخنة.
What would happen if the US takes on Iran on Iraqi turf?
Oh my God. It's going to be hell.
Do you think there's a chance that could happen?
By the way, Trump administration is escalating with Iran. The Iranians will not stand and do nothing. my country will pay heavily.
Which means that it's a very difficult situation that you guys are in.
We are between the devil and the deep blue sea.